I wanted to make this quick video to give you some hopefully interesting pointers when it comes to telephone screening rounds according to my experience. The first one I want to talk about here is transparency. So transparency on the employer side when it comes to telephone screening round is very limited in the sense that they will almost never share with you the profile of the ideal candidate or what the recruiter is actually looking for in the telephone screening round, simply because if they would share this in the job description, everyone would exploit this. That's why I often recommend people to ask, to try to find out what are those criteria that they're looking for, but they're not supposed to tell you, so you hopefully understand. Now, but also an interesting bit for you that you should consider here is your transparency, especially in a telephone screening round. You're gonna have, 45 minutes to advertise yourself, so by no means use a bad story, right? So if you prepare some stories, you prepare some experiences, prepare 3 the best possible experiences and your strength, right? And then spin them over as much as possible. Or if you have 10 great stories, that's excellent, but don't use so-so stories. Don't use ambiguous stuff about you. Use only the best stuff about you. Don't try to be over transparent in a telephone screening round, because they're not either. So that's tip number 1. The second idea I wanted to make clear to you, according to my experience, is it's an excellent idea to refresh your memory before a telephone screening round, to, prepare some of your best stories, your strength. But from here to spend weeks on preparing for a telephone screening round and to, become doctor in behavioral interviewing when you're applying for an SDE role, I believe that this could be very well be a source of frustration in these jobs interviews. So understand this is nothing more than a filter, and there's not that much information that you can pass on in that 1-hour interview, and the return on your investment of spending that much time in preparing for a phone screening round is very little. So that's why it's often not worthwhile to prepare for that long for a phone interview. So understand it's a very transactional process. And the third point I want to talk about here is the balance of power in a telephone screening round. So many of you complain that, hey, recruiter was late, recruiter didn't ask me the right types of questions, they didn't even read my CV, and so on and so forth. The reality in these phone screening rounds is that no matter what the recruiter does, it's them who will decide whether you pass on or not. So I would very much encourage you to take a slightly different perspective here, a more business-like perspective if you want. For example, if they're late, so what? What if you encourage them, hey, I really understand, we all have a job to do and I'm really understanding of the situation and so on and so forth. So compliment them, thank them, that they even made it to the job interview in the first place. And if they haven't read your CV, well, guess what? Take that as a... So if you smell them that they don't know much about you, well, tell them about you and tell them what you want them to hear, not the transparency point I made in the first place. But the idea is that in a telephone screening round, you're nothing more than a risk, and you're completely at their mercy if you want. So sorry to sound that in this way, but the idea is that it's a filter that you must pass. You must optimize the chances to pass that specific filter. It's nothing more than that. Well, whereas if you take this constraint of the interviewer not being professional or not being how you would like them to be, I believe you're already losing here if you take that pessimistic track. So I very much encourage you to take a business-like approach and take advantage of the situation however you see possible. So these were my 3 tips that I hope you'll find interesting and use in your own telephone screening round. And thank you very much for watching.